LAPD in pursuit.
Yeah, they're shooting pepper balls.
Wrong side of the road. Whoa!
I can't believe this. This is insane.
Welcome to 3P Pursuits.
I'm Desmond Shaw, and welcome to 3P Pursuits, where every day we'll be featuring one of the many pursuits we've covered throughout the years. And let's have a look at this marathon of a pursuit from November 3rd, 2021. I remember it like it was yesterday because it lasted for over 6 hours. Now, we were actually on our way to another story when we heard that CHP was in pursuit of a big rig in Burbank. It actually started in East LA, but didn't end until the wee hours of the morning in Santa Ana with a standoff with the SWAT team. And that was only after the big rig went through 3 Southern California counties and survived about a dozen spike strips. So let's have a look at this really crazy and unique pursuit.
And we interrupt the story for breaking news now, a CHP pursuit in progress.
Okay, let's go live to Sky 9 at Desmond Shaw with the very latest on this. I see, is it a semi that they're chasing here, Des?
Yeah, Jeff
It
and Susie,
is?
if you could believe that.
What?
Apparently it is this semi. I know, I can't believe it. We just happened upon this. We had heard one of the sheriff's deputies' helicopters overhead. They're the ones keeping eyes on this from the air, but it is CHP on the ground that is in pursuit of this. They're saying it may be a stolen big rig. Looks like, what does this say here? IFS Individual Food Service. So this might be a truck full of food or restaurant supplies or something like that. And indeed, we have CHP. They're going to want to be pulling this semi over. We're in Burbank on the northbound side of the 5, making our way towards Pacoima. So certainly not a fast pursuit. Of course, this is about as incapable of a vehicle as could be as far as, trying to speed up and get away from authorities. Who knows what this person is thinking, but an allegedly stolen semi here on the northbound side of the 5, Jeff and Susie.
Well, it's slow, but I mean, Susie, how do you even think about stopping something
I was
that
just going to
big?
ask you the same thing. On pitting, forget it.
Yeah.
And spike strips, I mean, obviously they're on the freeway right now. They're not going to attempt that right now, but even if we do get on service streets, I don't know how safe that is for a semi truck to be pitted, or I doubt they would. I mean, obviously they wouldn't pit it, but with
Well, and you also don't know
spike
if,
strips.
Yeah, you don't know if that trailer is loaded down with cargo or not, and of course that's a lot of weight. That's a lot of momentum behind it. Obviously the safety aspects of this are pretty high. You got to wonder just, if this thing is rolling at a certain speed. It's up to 55 right now. Just the momentum, the kinetic energy behind a big rig like this. And I don't think I've ever seen anything like this. You have been in LA for longer than I have. I've never heard of a pursuit of a big rig.
Yeah, we've seen ambulances, motorcycles, obviously. I don't think I've ever covered a pursuit of a semi-truck. No, I have not. Desmond, how are we getting the information that this is possibly a stolen semi?
It was actually the sheriff's deputy's helicopter overhead that told us, and apparently this started with CHP in the East LA area. That's just coming from our assignment desk right now. So if this was a semi that was reported stolen, it's, boy, just of all the things to steal, I mean, well, here we are in this, the supply crunch, the supply chain we hear about. Maybe someone's thinking that this container and this ship might be awfully valuable, something that they could sell on the black market, who knows? But yeah, I think this is my first semi-pursuit as well, Jeff and Susie. We've seen ambulances, we've seen a lot of U-Hauls. All various sizes of U-Hauls are an unusually popular thing to steal, but first time we've seen a full-size semi. And, let's just hope that obviously this person comes to their senses at some point, but that they don't try any crazy maneuvers and jackknife this thing, or heaven forbid, flip it over somewhere on the freeway.
Well, and you also have to think that, this is not just any driver behind the wheel. I mean, Susie, these are people that are experienced in big rigs. It's a special CDL license to even operate something like that. So you got to think it's a small number of people that could actually operate something like that. And if not, then that's even more dangerous if it's somebody just kind of experimenting behind the wheel. Yeah,
I mean, they're driving pretty well for just experimenting, that's for sure. And you're right, Jeff. I mean, you do need a special license, and you can't just jump into, in the front seat of this thing and start driving. I mean, most people wouldn't be able to.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be able to even start the thing up and to drive it. It seems that we're merging onto some other highway here. Des, can you give us a location?
Yeah, we are coming up through Pacoima now, so we just came up to the 5-170 merge, And we're hearing that this just happened. It was actually the victim that called 911. So if the driver of this big rig was pulled over, maybe they were taking a nap, they broke inside, or if the victim was actually carjacked with a weapon, that's still unclear. But this basically just happened. So this was not a semi that was maybe been missing and reported stolen from weeks ago. This just happened moments ago near the Eastdale interchange, and so CHP initiated the pursuit just moments after this vehicle was stolen. So what is this person thinking? I mean, obviously, when we cover pursuits with a sports car or something like that, we have seen sometimes where suspects are able to get away a motorcycle. But what are you going to do with this? There's no way you're going to be getting away. You stick out like a sore thumb. You're barely capable of going more than 60 miles an hour. They've already got the helicopter assistance overhead. They have CHP. There's no maneuvering your way out of this one. So this is a really, really strange one for sure. And what you mentioned as well, Jeff, how do we even know that the person behind the wheel is capable of driving a vehicle like this? You have to have a separate license to drive a semi. So that's another alarming factor.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could probably run spike strips. I mean, obviously there's a number of tires here. If you hit specifically maybe even the trailer, it would be dead weight, and that could be something that they could do. But yeah, this is something that's going to be a head scratcher for law enforcement, I think, to figure out how to stop this thing. Once again, you're seeing a CHP pursuit of a stolen big rig. We understand the victim followed the stolen rig, and then the suspect, the driver, which you see behind the wheel now, while on the phone with CHP. And then that's when the officers caught up and then attempted to pull that rig over. And of course, it didn't stop, and that leads to this pursuit. This appears to be IFS is on the trailer of this truck. And we believe, Susie, that that's some sort of food service vehicle.
Yeah, and Desmond was just talking about how the victim is the one who actually called 911 on this to say that their truck had been stolen. And interestingly enough, as we were talking about these special licenses that are required to drive something like this, as this person goes to the left side of this freeway here, we're still talking about the 5 freeway. We just passed Pacoima. But, you have to, again, have the knowledge, have the license, have the understanding of how to drive one of these things, to maneuver one of these big rigs. And you just imagine, is it someone who actually knew how to drive one already and they just saw it to think, hey, I'm just going to steal this truck because I know how to drive it? Or is it someone random who just knows how to drive it straight?
Well, it looks like somebody knows what they're doing, at least at this point in time, because they are up to highway speeds and they seem to be in control of the vehicle.
Exactly.
So I would think that whoever is behind the wheel is somebody who has knowledge of driving a big rig with all the gears and having a CDL license and whatnot, or at least somebody who's had experience with that. Now, you could theoretically just be in the driver's seat and go forward. But, I mean, as I understand it, there's multiple gears. It appears that this person is in control of this big rig, but it's just so odd to think that somebody decides to steal a big rig. I mean, what a big target. You got to think that there's some sort of beef that went on. We don't know exactly, but we do know that the victim was the driver, the original driver of this big rig, and somehow it was stolen, and then they followed it somehow, I would assume in another sort of a vehicle, Susie, followed this vehicle and alerted CHP, who intercepted it, and that's where we are right now. So it's about 60 miles per hour. You can see this is on the Ronald Reagan Freeway. That's going to be the CA 118 in Mission Hills. This all began in East LA at 5th and Indiana. This is a pursuit, CHP behind a big rig.
Desmond, can you tell us where we are now?
Yeah, so Jeff and Susie, we actually transitioned to the westbound 118 there away from the 5. So we're leaving Mission Hills, headed towards Granada Hills, and basically towards Ventura County. So we're in the North San Fernando Valley. Still have to go through Northridge and Porter Ranch before we head over the Santa Susana Pass, which, will definitely slow down the big rig a little bit as we make that climb towards Simi Valley and Ventura County. And, we're actually trying to kind of figure out the protocol on this one. I actually just asked a retired sheriff's deputy friend of mine, who also happens to be one of our pilots, can they even spike strip this guy if they want to? I haven't heard any talk about that, and even he's not sure about this. He said it seems like it might be difficult. Even he was a little bit unsure of the protocol, and I haven't heard any talk about that. I did hear the CHP officers, though, on the channel there. They have a pretty good idea of what this guy looks like, and apparently he's wearing an orange reflective vest, something like maybe a construction worker, like someone that will work on a construction site or a Caltrans work site, something like that. Apparently that's what he's wearing. They're thinking if he gets out and runs, they'd want to have some kind of identifying marker, but a lot of times we do see those suspects where they try to get as much distance between them and the police as possible before they pull over and run and have a head start. This guy's not going to have any kind of head start, so I have no idea what this suspect thinks the end game is going to be here.
Less than an hour into the pursuit, we start talking about spike strips. As I'm listening to the anchors, I'm also hearing police talking on the radios about possibly using spike strips or some other tactics they could use to try to bring this to an end. But of course, I can't talk about that on the air and tip their hand, but it will become more of a factor later on. For now, stick around. 3P Pursuits, we'll be right back.
Desmond, where are we now?
We are making our way into Northridge now, Susie. We're coming up, I believe, to Reseda Boulevard, leaving Granada Hills, headed towards Reseda. We're taking this chance to see if there's any way we can see in front of the vehicle. It's kind of dark, but you know, he's going so slow, it's really easy for us to get in the front. We'll see if we can maybe get eyes on the suspect to make sure that there's only one person in the vehicle. Here you see somebody just accelerating on the right, having no idea that they're next to the suspect of a stolen semi. Somebody who took this from someone not too long ago, and again, still unclear if that was if it was essentially, if you would consider this grand theft auto, or if it was a carjacking, or if a weapon was involved, or what exactly the circumstances were. Not really able to see too well, just a little bit too dark for us, unfortunately, but we're just about 3 or 4 miles away from the Santa Susana Pass. And I was thinking that as well, Jeff, just how much gas is in the tank. We know that these semis, even as big a gas guzzlers as they are, could go for hours and hours. So that's going to be another factor as far as how far this pursuit goes.
Yeah, you just wonder, this is an 18-wheeler, and that's a situation where you have 18 wheels that need to go over spike strips. Now that's a better opportunity, I guess, when you take a look at if they were able to do that, but they don't often do that on the highway because of the danger. You don't want to stop something of that size and that momentum.
They got to get in position to do that. They got to get well ahead of this truck. Obviously, they got to know, kind of guesstimate where they're going to end up if they don't transition to any other freeways, and then also they got to set up so that this driver doesn't see them. Also,
and
so
they usually
there's
don't
so
do
many
that.
different things that they have to take care of
They
first.
usually don't do that on highways anyway because it's too dangerous with highway speeds. Boy, this is something, if you're just tuning in, this is what we're dealing with. This is interesting. You might be shaking your head going, what's going on? Is this some sort of escort of police of this semi? But no, this is a pursuit of a big rig driver. This all began at 5th and Indiana in East LA. Well, now we are in the Northridge area on the California 118 in Porter Ranch now. And as we understand it, the original driver of this big rig, lost control of the vehicle somehow. This was a victim. We don't know exactly how they were able to steal it, but somebody hopped in and stole this 18-wheeler. And the victim, if you will, followed the 18-wheeler and followed the big rig and called CHP until they were able to intercept it, and that's where we are now. And this started about 15, 20 minutes ago. Yeah,
and apparently they got a pretty good look at the suspect, at the driver here. He's wearing an orange reflective vest, like some sort of perhaps construction vest. We don't know if he was maybe on the job somewhere and was wearing that, or maybe he wore that to, I don't know, to attract attention. We don't know. But at this point, we know that this person knows how to drive this truck. So that certainly, raises the mystery of all this, of how this person, first of all, was able to steal this truck. Was the driver, as Desmond was talking about, perhaps sleeping in the cab, and maybe they got in somehow, broke into the truck? Maybe this person used a gun to carjack this person. A lot of questions tonight still. And we wonder why. Why is this person taking this truck?
Well, and this has not been confirmed, but you got to think, could supply chain issues be a part of this? Could this be somebody taking matters into their own hands because this is a supply of something that they've been waiting on, and they got fed up to the point where they stole the supply and stole the vehicle? I mean, this is all just conjecture. This is all just something that we're kind of speculated on, but obviously there's got to be something involved with this. You don't hear about really anybody ever stealing a big rig, and this is the first time we've done a pursuit of that, at least to my knowledge. And so you got to think that there's something, because this is not, it's unusual. I mean, this is not something that just a normal driver would take on. I wouldn't think that somebody without the knowledge of driving one of these would, I think they'd be too intimidated to get behind. I know I certainly will get too intimidated to get behind the wheel of a big rig, but that's what is happening, 55 miles per hour. And we see this stolen big rig. Let's go back up to Desmond Shaw and Sky 9. So Des, just putting along. It doesn't appear to be any sort of traffic in the area, which is thankfully so.
Yeah, definitely light traffic here headed towards Ventura County at this hour. Not really going to be any kind of an issue. Don't see any construction slowdowns or anything like that. And so far, this driver's just been keeping it to the right lane, hasn't changed lanes at all, hasn't gotten to the shoulder, nothing erratic at all, other than obviously the action of, you know, stealing this big rig. So I guess we're really going to learn if and when this person finally gets off the freeway just how well they are able to drive this. It's one thing when you're going, you know, 55, may as well be on cruise control right now on the right side of the freeway, not doing anything else. He did seem to, you know, take that ramp north 5 to the westbound 118 just fine as well. But if he gets off the freeway and has to take some of those really wide turns, especially if there's other vehicles, then we're really going to see if this person is, you know, has that commercial license, or if they really know what they're doing driving this vehicle. Now, you did just see a CHP unit there, right there. They've been getting some various units in and out of this pursuit, and there may actually be spike strips somewhere in the plan. I'll just say that. Right now, there has been some chatter about that. It really may be the only way to stop this vehicle, you know, other than waiting for it to run out of gas, and who knows how long that could take. That could take us, you know, all the way up to the Central Coast, or you know, if this person, you know, had topped off the gas tank before this vehicle was stolen.
Sure, and that of course depends on, you know, how much gas again and how far this truck can actually go. A CHP official who is actually not a part of this chase telling me right now that pit maneuver, of course, out of the question, and probably okay to spike strip as long as a supervisor actually approves it. So that is interesting. Other than that, they say that they will just wait until this truck runs out of fuel.
So this is a truck with IFS food service on the side. We do not know the reason why this big rig was stolen. We just know that it's part of a pursuit right now. There's a lot of talk about maybe this is related to the supply chain. We do not know that. We haven't confirmed that. We're sitting here just kind of guessing as to why this might have even happened. It could have been something as simple as just somebody wanting to steal something. That certainly could be the case. But this is a very odd pursuit. We don't see this very often. This is a big rig driver that is being pursued by CHP. It began at 5th and Indiana in East LA. We understand the victim of this stolen vehicle called police, called 911, followed the vehicle, and then CHP was able to come up and to start the pursuit.
Coming up, we roll into hour number 2 of this pursuit. You're going to see an anchor change as Pat Harvey and Juan Fernandez step in. And you're also going to see a change in the pursuing law enforcement agency as Ventura County CHP enters the fray. No spike strips up to this point, but that's going to change when we return.
No, I was just listening in here on CHP and their tactics and whatnot. As far as spike strips go, you know, my concern is, well, several concerns, obviously. When we're talking about spike strips, they're designed to slowly deflate the tires so that we don't have a tire blowout or you know, hopefully not panic the driver and flip the car over. But if this driver were to see spike strips coming and he, you know, panicked and swerved to the side, he might flip this thing over and spill whatever's inside, which could be incredibly valuable. And in fact, what we're actually hearing now is that they may be backing off of that spike strip idea because for some of the concerns that I just mentioned, and they're not sure what is inside of this vehicle. I mean, it says IFS food services on it, so there could be anything from, you know, perishable foods on board to any kind of, you know, restaurant supplies, or I can't imagine there's anything, you know, toxic in there, but we'll see what else they're thinking about. But it sounds like they do not plan on using spike strips at this point.
Yeah, there's a lot of momentum behind this vehicle, just going the 57 or 50 miles an hour that's going right now here at 118 near the exit 32, the Rocky Peak exit. This is now in Simi Valley. And Susie, I would think that there's a limited options that police have because of just the size and the weight of this.
Sure.
Obviously, they have, like you had mentioned, there wouldn't be any sort of effort for a pit maneuver. And as Des just mentioned, when it comes to the spike strips, that could really cause a lot of danger and a lot of, just sheer momentum from this could really do a lot of damage.
Yeah, and as Desmond was talking about, looks like we just saw another CHP unit take the lead in this pursuit. It looks like they're switching out units there. CHP officials tell me that if you're in this area, if you see it in your rearview mirror, to slowly make your way to the right and make it known by using your turn signal. If you can't move, then you simply stay in your lane. We saw a car earlier kind of speed up. I don't know how they got past those CHP officials, to be honest, but on the right-hand side, you saw a car just speeding up and going past this pursuit. So CHP officials definitely telling drivers out there, if you are on this freeway right now, if you happen to be on this freeway, to not do such things.
Well, thankfully, this driver is in control of the vehicle. He probably has experience of driving these big rigs because there has been no aggressive or, really anything that shows, nothing that shows that they don't know what they're doing, at least at this point in time. Obviously, so it looks like this person is in control of the vehicle. They're doing highway speeds. There hasn't been any movement, erratic behavior from the driver, from lane changes or anything like that. And this is a lot of real estate, Susie. I mean, this is not something that you could, just turn off the highway, get on a side street, and then bail out. I mean, this is going to have to be probably on the highway. If they do tend to get off, they got to make sure it's the right type of exit, or they could jackknife. I mean, there's just a lot of issues. They just need to stay straight. As you take a look at that CHP unit, kind of parallel there, maybe going up to kind of see what's going on.
If you're just joining us here on KCAL 9 News today, just before the 9 o'clock hour here on KCAL 9 News, this is a CHP pursuit of a stolen semi-truck. We all started this in the East LA interchange, and it drove up the Burbank, 5 North in the Burbank area, 118 freeway as well. And
Okay, this is KCAL 9 News at 8 o'clock. We're going to transition over to Juan Fernandez and Pat Harvey on KCAL 9 News at 9 o'clock as they pick up this breaking news story of a CHP in pursuit of a stolen big rig.
And we are on KCAL 9 News at 9 o'clock. And very strange indeed. Juan, we've worked in this market for many decades. We've seen a lot of things, but don't remember seeing a stolen big rig in pursuit right now, or being pursued right now. The good thing is, Susie and Jeff mentioned that it is driving at the speed limit, but this is a huge truck, and we know it was apparently stolen because the victim called police and let them know this, and even followed the victim while talking to the CHP that the truck was stolen.
Indeed, and when they tried to obviously pull this big rig over, that is when this pursuit began, and we've been watching this pursuit unfold for the last half hour or so, and this is exactly what we're watching. As Pat was mentioning, speeds of anywhere from 55 to 60 miles an hour on the freeway. No erratic behavior right there. You can see the blue and red lights reflecting there off the side of the road there. This driver obviously does not want to stop, and as far as we know, Pat, the thought of using spike strips right now, that's off the table. As this continues to move. Go ahead, yes?
No, I was going to say, Desmond is overhead, of course, in Sky 9, and he had some updated information that they were backing off the possible use of spike strips. Is that right, Des?
Yeah, Pat and Juan, that's right. Just when you thought you've seen everything as far as the pursuits go, here we are with this semi-pursuit. And that's right. So we were thinking, how are they going to stop this other than waiting for this person to run out of gas, which could literally take hundreds of miles, depending on how full the gas tank is, since these things are designed really for the long hauls. And there was some talk of spike strips. There was kind of some communication between the sheriff's deputy's helicopter overhead and CHP about doing that. And it sounds like they were set up and ready to do it. And then when they asked the CHP supervisor what kind of vehicle this is, and they told him it's a 53-foot-long trailer, they said, no, you're not using spike strips on that. Now, the concern was that the main concern apparently was that they didn't know what was inside. They didn't want to cause a massive crash, but it sounds like they just found out according to our assignment desk, that the trailer is empty. I'm guessing the victim told him that. Again, this happened back in near the East LA interchange off of the 5. The 5 at Indiana, I believe, is where we heard this first got picked up, and that was actually the victim who had just lost control of the big rig, called CHP, and CHP got there and was able to catch up. I'm sure he said, it's got a giant IFS food services logo on the side, so it was very easy to identify which semi was stolen. And here we are. One of the weirdest pursuits ever is we're westbound on the 118, headed through Simi Valley. They were and this has now been transferred to Ventura County CHP, and they have also denied the use of spike strips. So at this point, I guess they're just going to follow it and hope this guy eventually pulls over.
Because what other options do they have, guys? I mean, it could be very dangerous. Obviously, anything could happen. You certainly don't want something that big overturning on a freeway. And the question that we certainly don't have an answer to, I don't know if they have talked with the victim, if this victim knows this suspect who was driving this vehicle. Obviously, they know how to drive a semi. I can't imagine that would be an easy task. And we have not seen any erratic driving or any really fast driving. Well, this is interesting, Des. I don't know. They slowed down. Oh, and that's not a law enforcement vehicle on the side of the truck. It almost looks like they're neck and neck, as if they know each other, which could also be a possibility. And here's the other question. What happened to the person that called CHP and they were following this big rig as they were talking to police? We don't know that, do we?
Yeah. No, we don't. And what I would really like to know is how this started, Pat. Did this was the driver, was the victim just sitting at a stoplight and his door was unlocked and somebody ran up and dragged him out and took the big rig? Was a weapon used? Was he pulled over in a designated place where a lot of times you see all the semis pulled over when they're on one of those really long days, and he was taking a nap and left the door unlocked? Or did he get out to check something on the trailer and left the engine running? There's so many ways this could have been done. So it's not even clear that this was stolen in a violent manner. I imagine that CHP is going to get those details from the victim, and we would really love to learn those details. But as we're westbound here, headed through Simi Valley, he's either going to, if he continues on this pace, it seems like he just wants to stay committed to freeways and highways. Going to have a decision to make here if he's going to stay on the 23, which will go southbound towards the 101 through Thousand Oaks, up a pretty steep hill, or he'll take the 118, or continue on the 118, which at that point turns into a surface street through Moore Park. So we may end up, if he decides to take that fork, then he's going to be on surface streets for the first time in that pursuit, and we're really going to learn quite quickly just how capable of a driver this suspect is, if this is someone who really does have experience, because at this point he's just been going in a straight line at 50-60 miles an hour. Hasn't been anything too difficult thrown at him. Hasn't been anything that he's had to dodge or do any sudden movement. So that's going to be coming up here at this raid in under 10 minutes as we make our way westbound through Simi Valley. I believe we're going to be headed up to First Street here shortly.
When we come back, the first significant attempt to try to bring this big rig pursuit to an end. Stick around.
Desmond is overhead, of course, in Sky 9, and he had some updated information that they were backing off the possible use of spike strips. Is that right, Des?
Yeah, Pat and Juan, that's right. Just when you thought you've seen everything as far as the pursuits go, here we are with this semi-pursuit. And that's right. So we were thinking, how are they going to stop this other than waiting for this person to run out of gas, which could literally take hundreds of miles, depending on how full the gas tank is, since these things are designed really for the long hauls. And there was some talk of spike strips. There was kind of some communication between the sheriff's deputy's helicopter overhead and CHP about doing that. And it sounds like they were set up and ready to do it. And then when they asked the CHP supervisor what kind of vehicle this is, and they told him it's a 53-foot-long trailer, they said, no, you're not using spike strips on that. Now, the concern was that the main concern apparently was that they didn't know what was inside. They didn't want to cause a massive crash, but it sounds like they just found out, according to our assignment desk, that the trailer is empty. I'm guessing the victim told them that. Again, this happened back in near the East LA interchange off of the 5. The 5 at Indiana, I believe, is where we heard this first got picked up, and that was actually the victim who had just lost control of the big rig, called CHP, and CHP got there and was able to catch up. I'm sure he said, it's got a giant IFS food services logo on the side, so it was very easy to identify which semi was stolen. And here we are. One of the weirdest pursuits ever is we're westbound on the 118, headed through Simi Valley. They were and this has now been transferred to Ventura County CHP, and they have also denied the use of spike strips. So at this point, I guess they're just going to follow it and hope this guy eventually pulls over.
Because what other options do they have, guys? I mean, it could be very dangerous. Obviously, anything could happen. You certainly don't want something that big overturning on a freeway. And the question that we certainly don't have an answer to, I don't know if they have talked with the victim, if this victim knows this suspect who was driving this vehicle. Obviously, they know how to drive a semi. I can't imagine that would be an easy task. And we have not seen any erratic driving or any really fast driving. Well, this is interesting, Des. I don't know. They slowed down. And that's not a law enforcement vehicle on the side of the truck. It almost looks like they're neck and neck, as if they know each other, which could also be a possibility. And here's the other question. What happened to the person that called CHP and they were following this big rig as they were talking to police? We don't know that, do we?
Yeah. No, we don't. And what I would really like to know is how this started, Pat. Did this was the driver, was the victim just sitting at a stoplight and his door was unlocked and somebody ran up and dragged him out and took the big rig? Was a weapon used? Was he pulled over in a designated place where a lot of times you see all the semis pulled over when they're on one of those really long days, and he was taking a nap and left the door unlocked? Or did he get out to check something on the trailer and left the engine running? There's so many ways this could have been done. So it's not even clear that this was stolen in a violent manner. I imagine that CHP is going to get those details from the victim, and we would really love to learn those details. But as we're westbound here, headed through Simi Valley, he's either going to, if he continues on this pace, it doesn't looks like he just wants to stay committed to freeways and highways. Going to have a decision to make here if he's going to stay on the 23, which will go southbound towards the 101 through Thousand Oaks, up a pretty steep hill, or he'll take the 118, or continue on the 118, which at that point turns into a surface street through Moore Park. So we may end up, if he decides to take that fork, then he's going to be on surface streets for the first time in that pursuit, and we're really going to learn quite quickly just how capable of a driver this suspect is, if this is someone who really does have experience, because at this point he's just been going in a straight line at 50-60 miles an hour. Hasn't been anything too difficult thrown at him. Hasn't been anything that he's had to dodge or do any sudden movement. So that's going to be coming up here at this raid in under 10 minutes as we make our way westbound through Simi Valley. I believe we're going to be headed up to First Street here shortly.
And something very interesting I heard also, Desmond, when this first broke out, was that the guy who stole this big rig was actually wearing some sort of reflective vest or some sort of work vest, which most likely, was this truck targeted? Was this guy looking for it? He clearly knows how to drive something like this. I know I couldn't just jump into the cab of this truck and suddenly start driving. And as Des is mentioning there, Pat, soon in just a few miles, the 118 will actually turn into surface streets there. And with the size and the volume of this truck, it's going to be real dangerous. I mean, you just don't turn these things on a dime. It could be very dangerous.
Oh, there's no question about that. And let's think about who wears reflective vests. Workers. A lot of workers that are working on the freeway. So that's very interesting. And if this is true, I don't know exactly if this adds anything or not, but this IFS Food Services, I believe they're out of Bell. I believe they're headquartered in Bell, California, and obviously they would have probably offices all over. But again, Desmond, listening to what Juan had mentioned, and also jumping off of your prediction of what could happen here in terms of the choices that this person would have, getting on the 23 and then hopping over to the 101, or just taking the 118 until it turns into, I believe, Moore Park Road, or a surface
that's right,
surface street in Moore Park. But we've been watching this for, certainly this started in the 8 o'clock hour, shortly after 8:30 maybe, and we've been on this trajectory from the 5 freeway, well, actually starting in East LA at, at 5th and Indiana Street, then on northbound 5, and then on to the 118 freeway. And this is where this truck, this driver has remained. Such a mystery, Desmond.
Well, Pat, we did just learn some potentially new details here from our Intrepid assignment desk. Really appreciate getting this information. It sounds like this truck was actually taken from the company's yard. So we know that this company is based in Bell. It's unclear if they have maybe an auxiliary, yard somewhere closer to Boyle Heights, because we first heard about this 5 at Indiana. So that's just south of the Eastdale interchange. But what I'm thinking is, if their yard is in Bell, which is more off of the 710. Maybe they came north 710 by the time it was reported to CHP was on the northbound 5. So you got, I don't know, this is kind of starting to kind of get the wheels working here. We've got someone with an orange reflective vest, and this was stolen. This was stolen out of the yard. And while I was just going on and on there, Pat and Juan, we didn't see it happen so quickly, but apparently they did use spike strips just now. It happened really quickly, just back there. I think it was under that overpass right there, which is why we missed it. So we'll see if that was successful, how many tires it hit.
You know something, guys?
And yeah, go ahead, Pat.
No, I was going to say, I noticed, I didn't say anything because I thought that maybe there was traffic ahead of this truck, but I noticed him slowing down a bit. He was driving at, well, he's picked back up now, but for a moment there, it was at 38 or something like that. So I was wondering if, if something was happening at that particular moment that he started driving slowly. But then again, I don't know, it could be the traffic ahead of him. But very interesting, Des. I mean, we've seen spike strips on a freeway before, especially when they're not driving, extremely fast. They've been in position. But as you were saying earlier, it'd be kind of dangerous for them to actually, to deploy something like this.
With one tire missing after a successful spike strip attempt, this big rig is still trucking down the 101. When we come back, more spike strips, more missing wheels in this bizarre pursuit.
And right now, we're going to turn it over to Susie Suh and Jeff Vaughn over at KCAL 9 News at 10 o'clock to pick up our coverage.
Pat and Juan, thank you so much. This is KCAL 9 News at 10 o'clock. This is breaking news of a pursuit of a big rig driver wanted for stealing a semi out of the city of Bell, out of the IFS food service yard near 5th and Indiana. Susie, CHP used spike strips at the 118 near Moore Park, and that has resulted in this big rig losing several tires.
That's right. The victim is the one who actually called 911 earlier near the East LA interchange. It had just happened just after the 8 o'clock hour, just before, I should say, the 8 o'clock hour. As Jeff was just talking about, the truck went over some spike strips and the rear tire was blown out. Several tires have actually fallen off. We're going to show you the highlight of that here, as you see on the right side of your screen. But we are now in the city of, I believe it was Woodland Hills when we were earlier. Looks like we're back on the 118. That was a 118 earlier on the right-hand side, and now we're in Woodland Hills. As I mentioned, this started in East LA, but this truck has been driving all over this place. I mean, all over the place tonight. We know that we picked it up in the Pacoima area, just off the 5 freeway north, and then it went on to the 118, as we just showed you on the right side of your screen. But this has been going on for almost 2 hours now, Jeff, and finally we're seeing signs of it actually slowing down. Yeah,
because it's got not a whole lot of rubber left to drive on. It did go and started in Bell, has gone through Burbank, Pacoima, Simi Valley, Thousand Oaks, Calabasas, now Woodland Hills. This is on the 101 southbound. I'm pretty surprised it was able to make it up the grade. Southbound 101 at Las Virgenes between that and Parkway Calabasas, but it did, going about the speed that you see it right now. Up in Sky 9 is Desmond Shaw, who has been with us from the very beginning of this pursuit, and we understand that the trailer is empty. We don't know exactly the circumstances as to why this big rig was stolen, but Des, it just keeps on, as you mentioned earlier, trucking and going, and just like the little engine that could, it just keeps on going and going and going.
Yep, like the Energizer Bunny, like any whatever analogy you want to use. You're right, Jeff. It's really incredible. I think we've covered probably about 100 miles worth of roadway now at very slow speed, struggling to keep 25 miles an hour. He has no front tires. So 8 of the 18 wheels on this vehicle, we think that he's lost a third of the rubber. He's down to about 12 tires. He's missing the 2 very front tires, I believe both sets of these dualies on the driver's side are also gone. And last we saw, the rest of the rear tires were all intact here. But the conundrum now for CHP, now that they've blown out the 2 front tires, when they tried the 4th spike strip, an unprecedented 4th spike strip on a freeway, I've never even seen more than one in all my years covering the pursuits. But the problem is that the spikes were actually, the first thing they were hitting were those metal rims at about 30 miles an hour. So that was either bending the spikes or kind of knocking them out of place, jiggling them all over so that they were not able to flatten any of the additional tires. So it's unclear. I don't know that even attempting any more spike strips is going to help to stop this vehicle once and for all. But obviously, it seems pretty obvious to me, and from some people I've just been seeing on Twitter, some truck drivers and whatnot, saying that this person obviously knows what they're doing. We've seen him now, take freeway transitions with no front tires, and really keeping his composure here, and no signs of slowing down as we make our way. We'll be at the 405 maybe in about 5 minutes here as we leave Woodland Hills and make our way into Tarzan.
Yeah, benefiting from straight roads, Susie, because he doesn't have any front tires. You would think that he would lose any sort of control in steering that, but because it's thankfully on some straight roads, he hasn't lost control and continues to motor down the 101, coming up to the 405. I guess he'll have a decision then whether he wants to go on the 405 or the 101.
And it seems like, blowing up those tires wasn't really effective, to be honest. I mean, he's still going. I mean, obviously a little slower than before. We were talking about 50-some miles before. Now we're talking about 30-something. On the right side of your screen is right where we see those tires getting blown out. As Desmond was talking about, many of those tires have actually fallen off. But as you see on the left side of your screen, this is a live picture from Sky 9 tonight of this semi-truck continuing and going on. We were thinking that at some point they might run out of fuel, and that would be how this truck, this pursuit, finally comes to an end. But that still has not happened.
Well, the power is coming from the, if you will, the dual axles and the front tractor of this trailer. And, the wheels that are lost in the very back, those don't power this semi. It's from those set of 8 tires right there in the back part of that tractor. If they were able to get the spike strips there, and you would think that they would have run over them at some point in time because the front tires are gone, Susie, but that's where he's getting the power to continue on at even 31 miles per hour with most of this big rig's tires gone and down to just the rims in the back. Again, there doesn't appear to be any cargo in this trailer, so it's not a whole lot of weight, but still able to continue at 30 miles an hour, not really slowing down much. When we first began this in Pacoima, it was up in about the 50, 55 mile per hour range, so it slowed it down about 30 miles per hour. But this is a slow speed chase of a very big vehicle in a big rig that was stolen earlier tonight from the IFS food service yard near 5th and Indiana in East LA, also city of Bell, if you will. And this has got to the point where he's driven around, as Des has said, 100 miles or more on that half a tank of gas. That's what we learned from that company, that there was a half tank in there. We still don't know why this big rig was stolen. We don't know if it was a disgruntled employee, but we know it was stolen from the yard. And here it is, still in our sights here some 2 hours later.
Yeah, I have some really bad news, and I'll just widen out and show you. And that is the marine layer. I know we were loving it in the weather shots earlier tonight, but look up ahead. We will not be able to follow this pursuit. You see downtown peeking up towards the distance and the lights of the Hollywood Bowl, but we're about to hit that cloud layer that even law enforcement will not be able to go under. So that's bad news. And unfortunately, more bad news. They tried another spike strip earlier. It was really difficult to see it happen really quickly, but once again, just like that was now the 5th attempt, and just like the 4th attempt, the spikes got stuck in those front tires. It went metal to metal, and then the spikes got stuck underneath the cab, and they never made it to the rear tires of the tractor itself. So that spike, the 4th and 5th spikes, have been unfortunately totally ineffective. And now as we climb the Cahuenga Pass at just about 30 miles an hour, I believe we're getting ready to cross Barham. There you see another CHP unit. They're really all over the place here on the ground, but it's going to be just from the ground now at this point. They're about to lose air support, and sadly we're about to lose our shot here
Unfortunately, the weather was very uncooperative that night and we were not able to follow the pursuit to a conclusion. But when we return, we'll show you what happened throughout the night and into the wee hours of the morning when this thing finally wrapped up at 8:30 a.m. We'll be right back with more 3P Pursuits. Finally, more than 12 hours after this crazy pursuit began and after an hours-long standoff with CHP on the freeway when the truck did come to a stop, the driver decided to surrender. And we were there when he was finally taken into custody. Take a look at this.
A marathon pursuit that is very likely to go down as the longest in SoCal history.
All right, look at that. There goes the tire right there. 3 spikes on the freeway. It's such a rare thing.
The CHP says because of the big rig's size, a pit maneuver was not an option. Instead, officers deployed spike strips 3 times.
We have to be extra careful. It's like a miss on the freeway. It's heavy. We're not sure if the driver was experienced on how to maneuver a big rig like that.
15 or so of the 18 tires eventually blew out.
A lot of sparks there just coming out of those rear tires.
Still, the pursuit continued. CHP says that's 22-year-old Brian Santana of Los Angeles behind the wheel. He stopped finally, beginning a standoff in the middle of the freeway in Orange County, stranding drivers for hours overnight.
I don't want to be here no more. I'd rather be working. I've been stuck here since 2:30 in the morning, boss. It's a nightmare.
Finally, at 8:30 this morning, Santana gave up, more than 12 hours after the truck was taken. Today, the truck is badly damaged, missing most of its tires and even some of the rims. It's no wonder, following the overnight pursuit. A wild chase, even by Southern California standards.
Wow, I have covered some long pursuits in my day, but I'm pretty sure that one takes the cake as the longest pursuit ever. Well, that's it for today, but we'll be back with another pursuit tomorrow right here on CBS News Los Angeles.